Hi and welcome to this Windows 365 Cloud PC webinar where we will cover what Windows 365 are and what it isn't basically. So we will cover both when you should use it and when not, and where and how it works. My name is Jörgen Nilsson. I have the great honor of presenting today. I work for OneWin in Sweden. I'm an MVP since a couple of years back, and I really enjoy everything that comes with client management. I've been working with it for 20 years somewhat. And Windows 365 is a new fresh addition to the cloud PC and the managed desktop environment, which is great. I really enjoy it. So let's dig into what Windows 365 actually is. Basically, I like the word hybrid cloud computing because that's what it is. Basically, it's a Microsoft hosted virtual machine. Depending on which license you buy, you have different control over the networking part. And of course, if you want to use AD join or Azure AD join or how you want to manage it. But for me, the network part is crucial as well. So we have a business edition and we have enterprise edition. We'll cover the differences soon. What is Windows 365 then? Well, it's a cloud PC, and that's actually a great name because that's exactly what it is. It's a cloud PC. You need to manage the cloud PC, the operating system, upgrading the OS, patching the OS, deploying application, managing it, doing everything that you do on a normal PC, but the hardware is in the cloud basically. It's accessible from any device. I didn't do it now, but I've been enjoying using Windows 365 from my iPad Pro, and just because I can, and using my AirPods Pro as the audio device, and being in meetings and nobody knew I was using anything else than a PC, so it works really, really well. And I'm truly impressed of the performance and speed of his as well. We will compare it to Azure Virtual Desktop later on as well. The license we use for Windows 365 is actually a fixed license, or it's license based basically. So we buy a license, and the license, you can say that the license actually is the hardware. So you buy a license with 8 gigs of RAM and 2 virtual CPUs. That's the license, and it equals the hardware as well. So if you want to resize it, you need another license with another hardware SKU basically. We will look more into that as well. It's hosted in the Microsoft subscription, so we never see the virtual machine anywhere in Azure or anywhere, as it's totally hosted in the Microsoft subscription. For the enterprise version, we require hybrid Azure AD join, at least for now, and an Azure subscription because we control the network. The connectivity to my cloud PC is hosted by Microsoft as well. So basically, we only we only manage the operating system and the applications like we normally do. Hardware, Microsoft, connectivity from outside, multi-factor, load balancing, front ends, fault tolerant, everything is hosted by Microsoft. We don't have to care about anything. And that's actually really, really great as well. So it's much, much easier to use than Azure Virtual Desktop, and it's very easy to get started with as well. So I said we have two editions. We have two editions. One business edition, which we manage from windows365.microsoft.com. It only supports Azure AD join, and we can have up to 300 users. So basically, it's like it's a starting SKU for smaller customers. Enterprise, that doesn't mean that smaller customers can't use enterprise. They only have to pay for enterprise instead for business. It's the management is totally integrated with endpoint management with MEM, the Intune portal. We have unlimited users. You can buy as many licenses as you like. Today it requires hybrid Azure AD join. It requires a Windows license as well, Azure AD Premium and Intune as well for the user using the device. And it requires Azure networking to be configured and present in an Azure subscription as well. But that makes it possible for us to control the network totally as well, where my virtual cloud PC ends up in my network. And it's really, really cool. I will show it later as well. As I said before, sizing is totally controlled by license. So if we compare it to Azure Virtual Desktop, where you decide how many CPUs and memory and disk storage and everything, here we don't do anything. We just buy the license. The license is the solution to everything. The price of the license can look like this. This is only the enterprise SKU, because that's what I'm using, and so I think I'm going to use most as well at our customers. So basically for $41, I get 2 vCPUs, 8 gigs of RAMs, and 128 gigs of storage. And it's extremely fast. Note that if you go to the smaller version, you will have limitations in Teams as well of what you can do. And then we can go up here as well, of course, but then it's more expensive as well. So I decided on this one because if we're going to show this and be realistic, we think that's where our users gonna be, and that's why we are going for that SKU in this demos as well. So we have a different life cycle, right? This picture is from the Microsoft Docs page, and it's actually great because basically we don't, compared to a normal device where we have hardware switching and everything, we don't need to care about anything at all. So you might argue that it's the same amount of management needed of a Windows 365 Cloud PC that is of a physical device. But we don't have to worry about drivers and we don't have to worry about firmware. So it's not exactly the same amount of work, but yes, we still need to patch it and upgrade it and so on as well, of course. The good thing is, as it's Azure hybrid joined in my case, even if it's Azure AD joined, we can use Configuration Manager if that's what you like. You can use endpoint management or Intune if that's what you want to use, or you can use both. It will work exactly as a normal machine as well. And that gives us a possibility to cover all the use cases as well. And I would say that getting this up and running, it only takes a couple of hours before the first user can log on, because it's very, very simple. And if we have the networking in place, it's extremely simple. So if we know which virtual network we want to put it on, then it's really easy to get it started as well. But basically, instead of procuring it, we don't procure it. We just provision the device. We don't do an OSD or anything like that. We provision the device. Then we basically configure it as any other device. And then we, of course, do our monitoring and management of it. We actually have different user analytics input as well. So we can see how the end user experience are on the cloud PC as well. Connectivity, latency, disconnections, and everything as well. So we get a lot of new insights as well. And then when the end user quits or anything else, or he doesn't need it anymore, whatever we like, we deprovision it and then we reuse the license for another user. So it's almost flat rate. We pay for a bit of traffic on the enterprise edition, but that's when we exceed the threshold as well. So if I want to access my Windows 365, now it's in Swinglish on the right. and it didn't like Jörgen either, so I'm called Jorgen, but that's fine. I can even use the browser, and the browser is actually a great experience as well. And we then have the optimated clients as well, both for remote desktop client for iOS, Android, Windows, Mac OS as well. And I've been using both, and I love them both. And I can see that this can be extremely useful in many scenarios where we actually can provision a machine really fast for an end user. If we have a new hire or if we have remote workers in the COVID times, we have countries locking down again, people working from home. It's perfect. They can use their normal PC, connect to the cloud PC. We can control how copy paste, everything works down to your physical device. And then we have the data secured in the Microsoft subscription, not your subscription, Microsoft subscription in that case. And if there's a need, there's a description or statement on how that subscription part is secured by Microsoft. So if you have any thoughts on that, you can just look in the documentation that describes how it's hosted and how it's encrypted and how it's separated from everything else. So how does the end user experience look like then? And the first time I log on, I'm sorry, it's in Swedish again. We basically get the page saying your cloud PC is ready, and this is the specs of it as well. So if I stop talking and show something instead, it will look something like this. You hardly saw that I switched to a real browser there. So basically I can just say open in a new browser, and then I can access. And this is the web, so it will ask me what it can connect. And then I need to log on. And then we are, and that was a domain logon. So I have already logged on to the Windows 365 page, providing MFA and everything before I got to this point. So basically this is my on-premise PC. This is my cloud PC that's on-premise on my network. And I must say, for being a browser, it's faster than my Lenovo Core i9 machine opening Word, for example. I think it's a great user experience. And as I manage it normally, just logging in, OneDrive is configured because I have that set up in Intune. I have got my applications I want. I got it Intune enrolled, and everything is ready to use. Teams, everything is there ready for me to use. And the experience is really fast, I would say. Maybe not that first run experience though, but I would say that it's a very good experience using it. I'm really impressed of the speed. I didn't think that was possible actually when I started it the first time to have such a great experience in a web browser. So I'm really happily surprised. And if I want to connect with the remote desktop client, it looks like this in Windows. Basically, I say subscribe, and I can actually connect with the email address as well. So I can actually connect directly with my email address. And I don't have to do anything else. And then I, of course, need to approve my sign in. And then it takes a couple of seconds, then my cloud PC will show up here. If I'm using Azure Virtual Desktop as well, I would see those machines here as well. So basically it's my launching pad both for Windows 365 and Azure Virtual Desktop. And if I start my cloud PC from here, I get not exactly the same experience, but it's very similar at least. And then it unlocks my PC because it's already running. It was never shut down basically. So it's actually really fast. And again, I have the same. I think it's very responsive. I really enjoy it. But it's my PC. There's no roaming of settings, nothing like that. It's like my physical PC. So that's something that's important to keep in mind as well. So that was the fast draw on the end user experience. If we look at the admin experience then in enterprise, that is, I'm not gonna dig down to business version at this short webinar. If you look at the enterprise edition, basically they will show up in the endpoint management portal, where I will have a new little provisioning tab here saying Windows 365. And from there I build everything, and I will walk you through all of it now as well. We have a provisioning policy. Before we go on, the provisioning policy contains the network connection and the image supposed to be used. I can upload my own image. Just remember to optimize it for Teams if you're using Teams in the same way we do with Azure Virtual Desktop images. We have user settings. I can decide if the end user should be local admin or standard user. And then I need my on-premise network connection as well. The on-premise network connections is made of the Azure VNet, DNS domain, organizational unit in the domain, and an account for domain join. If I have an assigned license and I assign the policy to my user, the provisioning of my Windows 365 Cloud PC will happen automatically. So there's nothing else needs to be done from my part. If I need to reprovisioning it is basically the same as reinstalling it. So if we look at the options we have here, we can see that the autopilot options are replaced with reprovisioning instead, and resize as well. I will show you that as well, what that's about. So let's look at the admin experience instead, because it's much more fun. So let's see if I go here. So here I have my endpoint management portal. I have my provisioning tab, and here I can see that I have one device provision, and it's Cloud PC Jorgen 1. And I can see which PC type it is and which state it's in, and which user it is as well. So if we walk through this user setting, that's the policy we say if it's supposed to be local admin or not. On-premise network, this is actually really cool. It actually runs checks all the time, verifying that everything is in order. So it will actually check Azure AD Device Sync, that my AD Connect is actually syncing objects. It will check, as you see what it will check. I can actually show you how that will look as well, because it also checks the Active Directory domain join. And I guess you want to see that as well. So if I've created it's a bit fussy though. I've created an OU called Cloud PC. And here I have a couple of objects. I have my CPC Jorgen 1 and Jorgen 2. That's my two computers. That's why they are enabled. And then we have something called CPC HTH, and that's the health object. So that's basically what this check here does. It actually creates an non-existing domain computer account, and then make sure that it replicates to the Azure AD tenant in hybrid join. So basically, using that, it will make sure that the domain join account works. We have endpoint connectivity because the object is created and then it's synced up as well. So it actually is a great thing. And if this fails, it will block the provisioning as well. And I can always retry them as well. And then it will say running checks, and it will retry this whole operation again. I can have more than one, of course. This is where if we do like this, if we look at, we can create a new one. This is basically where we say we name this one. We select our tenant or subscription. We select which subnet the device should be on as well. And then we come to AD, and then we fill in DNS domain, OU, username to join the device with, and then the AD password to join the device as well. So basically that's the connection that it's running checks on now as well. Then we have our device images, if we have custom images, and then we have the provisioning policy. So basically the provisioning policy only consists of which image should it use and which network should it use. So that's basically, and then we assign that to a group. So if I drop a new user in my Windows 365 Cloud PC group, and that user is assigned a license, it will be automatically provisioned a device for that, a virtual device for that end user. So the provisioning part is really, really easy. And then I can see here I have my devices, and I can look at the state they're in, if they're failed provisioning or in grace period or whatever happens. Grace periods is because they're not automatically deleted. There's a grace period before it's deleted if the license is removed, for example. So it's not immediately deleted and the end user's files will be lost if you mistakenly unassign the license, for example. So if we look at more admin experiences, if I look at my admin device now, it's here, and we can see which hardware it is. So we can see that we actually have a manufacturer called Microsoft Corporation, and it's actually called Cloud PC Enterprise as well. And this is actually great, because then we can create both dynamic groups based on the manufacturer and model name, and we can create filters as well. So I can create a filter for Windows 365 devices, so I can easily filter them in or filter them out of policies, applications, whatever I like as well in Intune. If I want a different setup on those machines which aren't the same as a physical device. So that's actually really, really cool as well. So I have filters here which are for Windows 365 as well, and I only use the manufacturer and model as well on them. So it's actually really, really easy to see to see and how it works. So it gives us a lot of possibilities. And before, now my machine is running V2 of the hardware, so it actually supports BitLocker. If you used Windows 10 before, in Windows 365 it didn't support BitLocker, and then it would say that it still was compliant because the hardware didn't meet the requirements and it was not applicable, like Intune can flag something, right? In my case now, I haven't turned on encryption on this device, and then it actually is non-compliant as well, which I want it to be as well. So it actually is it's working as expected, I would say, and I see them in my normal devices as well, and I can configure them and doing whatever I like with them as well. The thing that differs is this as well. As I said, reprovisioning means reinstall everything, and if I want to resize it as well, I have slides for this later on, but I can just show it now as well. If I have a need to resize this, the end user calls in and say, "Oh, I think my machine is running slow," then I can just say, "Okay, take this one instead." But I need to have the license in my inventory. Otherwise, I can't assign a different, resize the machine if I don't have a license for it. So I need to procure the license first and then upgrade it. But I can see that could be done on the fly, basically. But you see, we only have, so this view is special for Windows 365 devices. If I click reprovision, it will say that, are you sure that you really want to do this? The user will be logged off immediately and all the user data will be removed and a new Cloud PC instance will be provisioned. So basically it's the same as reinstalling the operating system. So it takes a while, so I'm not going to do it now. But it's actually very smooth. Not for the end user, of course, if we install his machine or hers, but it's a very smooth experience as well. So if we go back to our comparison of what Windows 365 versus Azure Virtual Desktop then. If we look at Windows 365 compared to Azure Virtual Desktop, Microsoft is hosting everything except for networking. So the only thing I have in my Azure subscription is networking. There's a prepaid amount of network traffic you can use. I didn't put it in the slide. And then you pay for the rest on top of that, depending on which license you've bought as well. If we look at Azure Virtual Desktop, some of the benefits are that we can use Windows 10 or Windows 11 multi-user. So we can have more than one user on the same machine, saving hardware or saving compute cost and disk cost. We cannot do that in Windows 365. App streaming, same thing here in Azure Virtual Desktop, we can stream apps. Windows 365 is a cloud PC and not a virtual cloud PC from that perspective. So no, we can't stream any apps. It's the whole desktop we stream. Identity, well, Azure AD Join is, I think it's still in development. I will show that later on in roadmap as well. But for Azure Virtual Desktop, it's actually in preview, so you can try it out now. Another thing that also differs between the two versions of the two options we have for virtual desktops is that user settings roaming. In Windows 365, it's a personal device, end of discussion. In Azure Virtual Desktop, we can actually use FS Logics to basically move all our end use, move this selected application settings and operating system settings to a different container. So I can roam my settings between the different multi-user machines, for example. So we can have non-personal devices as well, or non-persistent devices, which makes it more flexible as well. Windows 365 come with a fixed price as you purchase the license. For Azure Virtual Desktop, it's pay as you go. And that's a good and a bad thing. Many customer wants a fixed price because it's easier to calculate and knowing the cost. But for some scenarios, depending on usage, how much you use it, a multi-user, non-persistent Azure Virtual Desktop may end up being cheaper than a Windows 365 device. So that's some calculations that you need to do before you get starting and before you select the different SKU and which one you like as well. In Azure Virtual Desktop, we have GPU support. We don't have that in Windows 365 else. So in my conclusion for this, I would say that Windows 365 is optimized for simplicity and Azure Virtual Desktop is optimized for choices and customization and everything. You can control everything. You host everything on your own. You can configure it exactly how you want it. Here it's hosted in the Microsoft subscription. We can control the networking though. And if we go back to my portal again, so we can see that I have my, let's see if we have it here somewhere in hardware. So we can see that we have our device. And as I said before, it's hosted in the Microsoft subscription. So I will if I look in my subscription for virtual machines, it's empty. I don't have any virtual machines. For Azure Virtual Desktop, I would see them here as well. If we go to virtual networks, I basically have created one in this tenant. And if I look here, I can see that this is the connected devices. So here is actually my the only thing I see from my Windows 365 PC basically. So it's identified as a network interface and it has an IP address. So this means that I can control, as I said before, I can control which network it's on and what that network can access. I can put firewalls in here. I can do whatever I like to control the traffic as well. And I think this is one of my favorite things, that it's still hosted in the Microsoft subscription, but the network itself is hosted in my subscription, so I can control everything about the network. So if I go back to my cloud PC here, which I apparently disconnected from, let's see if it, or I was connected already. Oh, we'll see. So if I look at my machine here, and we will see, let's see if I can make it an active window, makes it a little bit better. We can see that my IP address is 10.0.10.5. So then I can find that interface as well and see which interface that is. And what's really cool is it's a hybrid device. All the things with access and everything, maybe your organization isn't there yet. And I actually have my home share on my file server already mapped on this machine as well. So I have totally access to all my files there as well. And I can access everything on inside of my network. So I think this is a very, very good thing and very easy to do. You can see this connection specific DNS suffix as well. But I think this is one of the really strengths, that it's so easy. So if I have a network and I have Azure networking in place, it's so easy to get started with Windows 365. And here you can see my Azure Virtual Desktop NICs as well, because they've been here as well and playing around as well. But I tore down that environment before we did this session, because I didn't want to have those showing up as well in other views. So it's very easy to get started with, and simplicity is key. What's good to know as well, which made it a bit troublesome depending on which region you're in and which options you have. The list of where you can host Azure Virtual Desktop changes, or Windows 365 changes all the time, so just check out the website. But in my case, just to demonstrate it, I actually selected the Netherlands, or I disconnected the Netherlands data center, or West Europe. So I will, if we look at my machine now, it's, even if I'm connecting from Sweden, then the location of this machine will of course be where it is in the real world, right? So let's see if we can do it like this. You can see here that it says the weather is 50 degrees Fahrenheit in Amsterdam, North Holland. So that's something to take into account as well. The first time I logged on here, it was some of the alerts in AD was triggered by impossible travel and so on and so on. But that's not happening anymore. But so it's important to know that we will be in a different region, and there are some things you need to fix if it's not available in exactly your region. You will have to flip the language of the device and location perhaps as well. So that's something to keep into account as well. And as I said, we have its own hardware model, which makes it possible for me to create both dynamic groups and filters based on manufacturer and model. And that's actually a big strength as well. Then I can filter it out. If I don't have the same requirements for compliance, I can deploy a different compliance policy to it. So I can basically control exactly how I want it to happen on it. And I think that's a big strength as well. For the Windows 365 roadmap, it's the same with all the other services that Microsoft is launching now. We have some great pages where we can see what's new and what's happening and what's going on, basically. So if we look at what's new, we can see what happens. It was only a license change, but nevertheless. And then we can see what's in development as well, what's coming. So we can see that conditional access groups for Windows 365s. We can see support for Azure AD joined cloud PCs, as I said before. Support for GPUs, which I said didn't exist as well, but it's coming as well. So there's a lot of things happening, and again, language and region. So there's a lot of things happening for Windows 365, and I would say I must say that for being such a new and it's a very mature product already, and I guess that's because it builds a lot of the Azure Virtual Desktop infrastructure that Microsoft invested in. But it's very mature, and it's definitely ready for business use. And I think the flexibility and everything around networking and how we provision it and how we manage it is a huge success because it's so simple. So I hope you are interested in checking out Windows 365. I can see so many use areas for it as well, as we said before. Consultants, external people working from home, you still have your data inside your network as you control the virtual network node on the machine as well. So I think that's a huge strength, and I think you should definitely check out Windows 365. And with that, I would say thank you for listening and see if there's any questions that have been coming in. But it looks quite nice. No, there were questions.
Yep. There are questions. Yep. So thank you for that, Jörgen. We can take the first question, and is it possible to reach on-premise applications from a cloud PC?
Absolutely. I just showed that my Windows I can show it again. My normal traditional home folder H was reachable as well. Yep. So absolutely, no problem. And that's one of the great strengths, I would say, as well. So that's one of my servers playing some trick on me. So yeah, absolutely, it's there.
Super. And the other question is, do you have any experience about IP phone apps like Telia Touchpoint, a Windows 365 cloud PC?
No, I haven't tested that at all. There is a limitation in Teams. So when you join a meeting with camera and you start presenting, it will automatically turn off the camera as well. And there's a lot of optimizations done for Zoom, for Teams and for Zoom now as well. But I haven't tested it with Telia Touchpoint. Would be great interest to see how that works actually.
Yep, we can follow up on that one. And I think you answered this, but we can highlight it as well. The other question was, are there any GPU accelerated options available, for example, CAD CAM?
It's coming, yeah, but not for now.
Yeah, so that was in roadmap. And the last question here, we have one more. So is it possible to provision Windows 365 in the new Swedish Azure region?
I haven't seen if it's available yet, actually. I don't think so, but no, it's not. It's still West and Europe North. So, but I hope it will get there. I hope it will.
I think so too. They will get there, but it's not available yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And we have another question here. Can you run a Windows 365 Enterprise Azure AD join Cloud PC without customer network, only in Azure AD Intune?
Not at the moment. You need to have it in place at the moment. Azure AD join without hybrid is in the roadmap, as I showed before. So it's being developed. So hopefully that will fulfill your requirements for that part as well when that's released. So it's a work in progress.
Yeah, super for that. And then one more question there. If I'm in China with Windows 365 created in Western Europe, do you know if this will work? Thinking about the speed and China firewall and so on.
I haven't tested it out actually. If that will work, it's definitely an interesting scenario though. But I haven't tested it out though. Not sure if I can either, but it sounds like a good test to do. Absolutely.
Super. So then we have two things to try out. Is both the IP phone apps and China situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's still a new service, as I said. So there's a lot of things not being tested yet, but we will get there. We will get there. Absolutely.
Yep. Super. So that was all of the questions that we had.
That sounds great. Then I thank everyone for listening. And if you have any other questions, just reach out and we will happily answer them for you. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.